Hey, this is Jeff Beveridge, Project Management and Leadership Trainer with Corner Post Management Experts, coming at you with another delicious, refreshing fact snack. Fact snack? Jeff, I thought these things were called knowledge snacks. They were. Shout out to my wife for the excellent recommendation on the name change. Fact snack is way better. So welcome to another delicious, refreshing fact snack brought to you by Corner Post Management Experts. Today's topic, project management tools and techniques. Now, when we say tools and techniques, we're talking about those tools and techniques contained in the 6th edition of the Project Management Body of Knowledge, or PMBOK Guide. The PMBOK Guide is published and copyrighted by PMI, the Project Management Institute. And in the PMBOK Guide, there are 49 distinct project management processes. For each process, you're going to find certain inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs. And the focus of this video is those tools and techniques, the specific tangible resources and procedures that are used in the performance of a process. The PMBOK Guide has a total of 131 tools and techniques, and a lot of these are used in multiple processes. In fact, a handful of them are used frequently throughout the PMBOK Guide. We see them over and over and over again. For that reason, because there are 131 tools and techniques, when I'm talking with students about preparing for the PMP exam, I do not recommend trying to memorize all 131 of these tools and techniques. You're better off trying to understand them, understand and be able to recognize certain tools and techniques, but more importantly, understand the categories that they fall into. So a little over half of these tools and techniques that are in the PMBOK Guide are aligned across 6 groups or categories, and those groups or categories are data gathering, data analysis, and data representation. And then decision-making, communication skills, and interpersonal and team skills. So as we said, you're better off in a study mode and also out in the real world kind of understanding the categories that these tools and techniques fall into rather than trying to necessarily memorize every last one. So that's what we're going to do in this video. We're going to introduce the tools and techniques that fall within these categories, and then we'll talk about aligning some of the ungrouped tools and techniques to their knowledge areas. The first 3 categories that we're going to look at all deal with data. Data gathering, how do we find information? Data analysis, how do we make sense of information? And data representation, how do we communicate information to others? And the first of those categories is these data gathering techniques that we're seeing on the screen. Things like brainstorming, focus groups, gathering data from our team members and folks inside our organization. Benchmarking, where we're gathering data about other organizations and seeing how we stack up. Market research, data about the industry in which we're working. So these data gathering techniques are all about how do we as project managers find information. The next category, and we see this one as a very lengthy list, is data analysis techniques. How do we make sense of information? And speaking of make sense, it makes sense to us that this list is so long. You can imagine that there are a lot of data analysis techniques that would go into the performance of the 49 project management processes. So how do we take the data that we've gathered and make it meaningful, make it relevant, and make it understandable for the work that we're trying to do? That's what we're looking at with these data analysis techniques. And again, you'll see many of these across the PMBOK Guide throughout several different processes and knowledge areas. Rounding out the first 3, we're now seeing data representation techniques. How do we represent data? How do we display it? How do we communicate it to our project stakeholders, to our team members? So things like flowcharts, process flowcharts, things like matrix diagrams, and some of these quality data representation techniques like scatter diagrams and control charts. These are tools that we can use and techniques that we can use to share information with our project team members and with our stakeholders. The next 2 categories are relatively small, so we've got them both on one slide here: decision-making and communication. The PMBOK Guide lays out 2 decision-making techniques, multi-criteria decision analysis and voting, But if you dig into the PMBOK guide, you'll see that in each of those topics, it goes into a little bit more detail. There are a handful of ways that we could do multi-criteria decision analysis. There are a handful of ways that we could conduct a vote on a project team. As we look down at the communication skills, we see feedback and presentations. And again, you'll see these two commonly across the project management body of knowledge because these are two key skills that a project manager needs to have for the performance of many processes. The final category that we want to look at here is interpersonal and team skills. Things like conflict management, emotional intelligence, and negotiation. Some of the things that we commonly think of as maybe being the soft skills side of project management. And these interpersonal and team skills, as you can see, a lot of them are focused on how do we communicate with our team members and our stakeholders? How do we understand and how do we help our team members and our stakeholders communicate and understand one another? As we said, there are an additional 59 tools and techniques that do not align with one of the 6 categories that we just went through. The most common among these ungrouped tools and techniques are what we're seeing right now. Specifically, and we see these two in bold right at the top of the list, expert judgment and meetings. You will see these two listed as tools and techniques across several processes in the PMBOK guide. We'll go through the remainder of the list because it is a short list. Things like decomposition, estimating techniques, problem solving, audits and inspections, project management information systems, and also communication techniques. So these are our most common ungrouped tools and techniques. The remaining tools and techniques, we can understand these by trying to align them with the knowledge areas where we find them. So we have 2 slides on this one. Right now we're looking at integration management, schedule, scope, and cost, as well as communications management. And now we see as well quality management, resources management, risk management, procurement management, and stakeholder management. So again, to understand these tools and techniques, I do not recommend you try to memorize every last one of them, especially not as one big list, kind of in the way that we've presented them here. Instead, understand those 6 categories that we talked about, and of course, understand the different knowledge areas of the PMBOK guide, right? You need to know that already. So, when you're trying to study the tools and techniques, for each one, when you come across a tool and technique, a tool or technique, think about what category does it fall into and why does it fall into that category? What knowledge area does it align with and why does it align to that knowledge area? So rather than trying to memorize every last tool and technique, what they are and exactly what processes they align to, be able to recognize them because when you studied them, you thought about, okay, well, where do they align and why do they fit in there? Thanks so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this fact snack. As always, we want you to click like, share, follow, subscribe, whatever button they've got on whatever platform you're watching this video. And if you want to learn more about the ITOs or see a copy of this presentation, you can visit us at cornerpostmanagement.com. Click on free resources to find a copy of this presentation, as well as a large handful of free resources brought to you by me, Jeff Beveridge, of Corner Post Management Experts, and we hope to see you again very soon for another delicious, refreshing fact snack.